So the three of us had a little chat in the previous session. We decided that I'd give kind of a general summary of the last few days, and then I'd hand it over to these fine gentlemen beside me to elaborate on some of the larger ideas. So just to begin with, I can say that I had more notes over the last couple of days than I have throughout 3 years of my PhD. So that tells me either two things. One is that we've had an action-packed few days, or two, my PhD hasn't been as productive as I would have liked it to be. I prefer to go with the former on that one. So I'm going to give a general synthesis of the different sessions. We'll go through those, and then we'll elaborate on some of these ideas. So we began with a number of different perspectives in which to understand the challenges of cities today. Ed provided us demographic and spatial perspectives. Peter provided us with detailed history of the economic perspectives, and Saskia enlightened us with the institutional aspects. That led us into the transformative nature of cities, an urgency to revisit the question, what is a city? Luke, Ming, and Peter contributed to that. Then we started to look towards indicators for understanding the city. That's when we turned on the big data for decision making and the challenges surrounding working with big data. And that was Michael, Laurie, and Karima. Eventually bringing in some complexity, the dimensions of scale. We visited size, density, and social interactions. That was Arthur, Thomas, and Dave, and Neil. And then we attempted to synthesize, Then on day 2, we began by exploring the essence and feel of the city. And that's where we talked this morning about city love, public space and civic life, and the threats and opportunities that surrounded that. That was Peter et al. On behalf of John and Karima, and Seth and Tigran as well. We also touched upon the governance and management of cities. Knowledge is a distributed good, and civic culture for urban regeneration. And that was Fran, Luigi, and Antonia. This eventually brought us to the challenges posed by the contemporary urban narrative and the future of cities. So that was managing rapid urban growth, diversification as an insurance to shock, and the impact of infrastructure investment. And that was Roger, Mercedes, and Kingsley. And then in the most recent session, we learned about the dynamics of political support for urban bills and public space in the post-urban world. And that was Zach and Hans. So in the end, it kind of left us with a number of questions that I thought it'd be worth raising just to reflect on. And these are questions that came up over the last couple of days. How do we see smart solutions being applied to address contemporary urban challenges? Should we reconsider the way we conceptualize a city, or what is a city, as Peter put it? How do we break down knowledge barriers and silos to approach the challenges faced in cities in a more multidisciplinary way? Who is the city for versus who owns the city? And ultimately, who will be the winners and losers as we look to technology to address some of the contemporary urban challenges? So I'll pass it over to my friend Kingsley here.
One of the big issues that have been coming forward has been kind of what's been done elsewhere. How do people think of cities in China? How do they think of cities in Europe? How do they think of cities in different parts of the United States? How do we think of cities that are large versus medium size? It seems to me that's an area where scaling in different ways is very, very important. One of the issues that was just raised, for example, has to do with the public space, which I agree. I think there's a huge literature out on that. The question, however, is how people use it. Whether we see public space being used in small places the same way as it's used in larger places, the same way as it's being used in extremely large places, and by whom in each of those places, which is very, very critical. I guess one of the concerns that I've seen is I think measurement is a critical component here. We've raised some really, really good questions. I think, in some ways, the infrastructure stuff is easy, i.e., I can measure the number of miles of new piping put in. I can measure the amount of use of a transit system. There's still big questions in there. I don't mean it's easy in the sense that, but it's very, very hard to get a good quantitative handle on some of the other areas that are being raised. And I think we have to think strategically about how to do that so that they can stand up with regard to the other pieces. So I think there's an interesting trade-off here of the different elements and how to strengthen the position of those that are have a weaker position, not because it's not important, but because it's not measured as easily, and maybe in fact more important, but the measurement is very difficult. So I'm going to leave that there and pass it along.
Okay, I've got this mic on. So my two fellow rapporteurs have done the heavy lifting, have done the summarization and the asking of the big questions. So that leaves me to do the wrapping part. So to wrap things up here, I thought, could I wrap this whole thing up into one word? And then I thought, no, consistent with Mr. Ziff's principle of least effort, I should crowdsource this. And so we have these very nice paper pads that our Swedish hosts have provided us with. So I want to pass these around. And so just write down your word on these. And during the cocktail hour, if you show me yours, I'll show you mine. And then we can, do a word count and see if we get a rank size rule and go from there. But then I thought, I'm kind of absconding with my role here. So I would say just a few more words.
But the German speakers can actually just create a single portmanteau, vast word, lots of on that.
Well, I was going to say that Ed Glazer could probably summarize, could speak all the words that have gone over the dam since 8 a.m. Yesterday morning. But I can't speak that fast. And Tigran could probably forget all those words even faster than Ed could play them back. But I thought I should just go back to a few of the mellifluous, I think is the word, words of our own Amsterdam, Peter Nijkamp. When he taught us our ABCs, when he taught us what the whole point of this gathering was. And you may remember he said, really the point of this is for the future. It's for bringing together some advanced people to brainstorm and to intersect, to bring together interdisciplinary perspectives and to forge some new relationships, some new research teams, and to come up with some big picture ideas like they do in the hard sciences, okay? And his example, okay, was an interesting one. He was talking about a bunch of physicists and other hard scientists proposing billions of dollars of research on why stars twinkle. And so usually about this time in a Peter talk, he has to tell us some bizarre story. And so I'm signed up to be in Tucson's annual bike race, El Tour de Tucson, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, where you try to lose a lot of weight so you can eat a lot on Thanksgiving. And so I was out climbing the hill behind my house up into the foothills of the mountains. And I was slowly gaining on this jogger, a runner. I was down in my lowest gear, but I eventually caught up with her just before the top of the road. And she was wearing a T-shirt that says, "I don't sweat, I sparkle." And so I think, what we need from here on out is actually both of those things. I mean, good research is both sweat and it's twinkle, it's sparkle, okay? And we've had a lot of sparkle and a lot of twinkle here, but now it's time to get down to do the hard work. So that's where I thought I'd leave it, and think about your word, and we'll analyze them later.